To everyone I've hurt, my friends, my family, my co-host Sam, everyone in this audience, I want to apologize for what happened on last week's show. I didn't mean any harm to you or your fantasy teams when I recommended Dylan Laube as a potential sleeper candidate for Week 12. I led with my heart and not with my head. I was blinded by the athleticism and youth of Mr. Laube. I did not respect the incompetencies of the Raiders coaching staff. I should have known they would force feed touches to Amir Abdullah and a man named Sincere McCormick. So for that, I am embarrassed, and most importantly, I am sorry. It won't happen again. That is all. Sam, where'd you go, Sam?
You know, I was inspired by you, and I'm pretty sure I've got a target on my back, or in this case, my head, because I also failed miserably with my sleepers last week. So for that, I apologize so much.
We both gave goose eggs. 0 Dylan Laube, 0 Isaiah Likely.
It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty.
Good.
I gotta say, it was not just this show. I had a down week. I'm the first person to say the worst thing is when you're doing 3 hours of starts and sits every Sunday and you've got people that count on you. And man, all last week, every game I was watching, I was like, I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong.
We fell complete victim to Buymageddon.
Yeah.
Just blame it on Buymageddon.
We did.
What do you get?
Blame it on the buy. Yeah.
What do you got for this week? Let's make up for it.
Yeah, we'll make up for it. And that was my first bad Sunday in a while. So I don't plan on repeating that anytime soon.
Won't happen again.
All right. We've got sleepers. We've got streamers.
Who you got? Who's your number one?
Well, we were saying before the show, this is a tough week for sleepers and streamers because a bunch of the league has already played. And also, hi, Angie. And also, there's no buys, which is like weird at this point. So, you know, a lot of people have their full complement of players, but there's still surprise injuries that pop up. There are still people in 14-team leagues with tons of flexes. I'm not naming any names, Angie. But yeah, so either way, hopefully we'll have some things and they'll be like, when an injury pops up, somebody will like, who are those two morons talking about on Friday again? Right. All right. Well, I'll start, and I'll start with a one we've already done on this show, and one that you did very well, and that is Will Dissly. And the only reason I'm bringing him back is because he's back down on percentage again, because he was a huge pickup for Buymageddon, and even week 11 a little bit, and then it's like everybody got their tight ends back, and a bunch of people dropped him because they kind of figured it was a flash in the pan. But I'm going to tell you the stats haven't changed. He's still averaged 10 points a game in his last 6. Now that's, with a couple fluctuations. His ceiling during that time period was like 18. His floor during that time period was like 2.5. But if you really look at it, he's good for 8 or 9 points every week in PPR leagues. So, maybe you lost Kincaid again. Maybe you didn't start somebody because you thought you were going to have Kincaid. I saw that happen a bunch of times, and then they couldn't pick up Schoonmaker because he had already played. So if you need a tight end, check to see if Disley's on your waivers. Your first instinct is to think he's not going to be, but he might be. I was really shocked to see him in my home league.
Yeah, I like that call. Disley's been good. As you said, he's been really good. Justin Herbert's been playing really well. The passing volume has steadily risen in that offense over the last 6 weeks or so. And they're going to be against the Falcons, who, they're an inconsistent offense, but they can heat up and get going at any time, which could create a shootout and really, really drive up the passing volume for Justin Herbert in that offense.
And no J.K. Dobbins.
And no J.K. Dobbins as well, which is only going to give them even more incentive to drop back with Justin Herbert. How many times do you really want to give it to Gus Edwards? Probably not a lot. So, I like Disley for sure. I'm going to kick my sleepers off with Jeremy McNichols. He's rostered in about 15% of leagues. I liked him better when it was sounding like we were going to be without both Brian Robinson and Austin Ekeler, but Eckler's officially out. Brian Robinson's going to play, but he's very clearly banged up with that ankle injury. If you look back at week 4 against the Cardinals, the first time that Ekeler missed games with his original concussion, Jeremy McNichols carried the ball 8 times, 68 yards, and scored 2 touchdowns. He's going to see probably 10, 12, 13 touches in this game, and he's been efficient. Obviously, he hasn't had a ton of touches this year, but he's been efficient when he's had his opportunities. He's averaged 4.9 yards per carry. He's got 3 breakaway runs, which on just 44 carries, that's pretty impressive. About 7% of his carries go for 15 yards or more. He's a fast, explosive running back, 215 pounds, 4.49 speed. And we talked about it before the show. He can catch passes. He had a 28 reception season back in 2021 as a part-time player. He caught 88 passes over his final 2 seasons at Boise State. And game script could very likely be in his favor this week. I know the matchup is tough. The Titans have a tough defense, particularly against the run. But if the Commanders, they're favored in this game, the Commanders get out to a lead, they're going to lean on the run game with Jeremy McNichols, with Brian Robinson. I expect probably about, like I said, 10 to 13 touches from Jeremy McNichols in this game. And with his efficiency, his explosiveness, that could be enough to give you a 10-point performance and be a nice flex play for you.
Yeah, I like McNichols a lot. And I'm particularly, looking at the fact that since they do have Brian Robinson, that might actually work in McNichols' favor. Because, they like running Robinson and Ekeler out there together. So I'm looking at Robinson probably to be a little more between the tackles, and maybe McNichols picks up a little bit of what would normally be Brian Robinson or Ekeler passing touches. So, if he was just the running back, the Titans might stuff him, but him leaking out of the backfield for running back screens and wheel routes and that sort, that might actually work out to his advantage as well, and he might break off one at any moment.
Yeah, it's a 2-back offense even when these guys are healthy. So a banged up Robinson, I think we get a pretty decent roll from Jeremy McNichols. Who's your next guy?
I don't think we officially said him. I think we joked about him a lot. But I'm going to drop Valdez-Scantling in there this week.
Finally giving in, huh?
Huh?
You're finally giving in to MVS?
I'm finally giving in because, they're lined up to potentially have to keep up with the Rams. and the Rams play a lot of zone coverage because they just don't have the man-to-man guys. Scanling, it's only been 2 games. I get it. And it's 5 catches, but 3 of those catches were touchdowns. He's getting all the snaps. And if they got to keep up, Carr loves to throw the long ball. He really does. He doesn't like dinking and ducking. So there's, at the very least, we're going to see several home run balls thrown in his direction. So as long as they're on the same page, that could really work out. Scantling could be a really big sneak attack one more time. And, regardless of what he's done in the last 2 weeks, still only 30% rostered in leagues.
Yeah, I mean, the first week where he had a nice game for the Saints, he did it on pretty limited opportunities. Last time around, he was playing full complement of snaps. He played like 86, I believe, ran about 86% of the routes or so. So we're going to see full role MVS. And all he needs, we've seen it, all he needs is a few plays down the field. And like you said, Derek Carr, he likes to push the ball down the field. And that's probably the best part of his game, is getting the ball down the field. I like it.
All right, who you got?
I got, so usually we go pretty deep on this show. This one, not very deep, to be honest with you. Tank Dell. Tank Dell, not a guy you're going to find on your waiver wire. He's rostered in 91% of leagues, but a lot of people are shying away from Tank Dell right now. Tank Dell is just someone that people are not starting with a lot of confidence, but with Stephon Diggs out for the season, it's now starting to become the Nico Collins Tank Dell show again in Houston. Dell's been over 50 receiving yards in 3 of his last 4 games. He's averaging 7.5 targets per game over that stretch. And if you look at the matchup, the Jaguars, they've allowed the 7th most receptions to wide receivers, the 4th most receiving yards to wide receivers, the 6th most receiving touchdowns to wide receivers, and the 3rd most fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position. They get Trevor Lawrence back in Jacksonville, which is good news because he is going to create a much better chance for this game turning into a shootout, or at least a competitive enough game where the Texans are going to be incentivized to pass the ball at a decent volume, as opposed to a Mac Jones who's going to drag the game down into the mud and make it a Joe Mixon game. Trevor Lawrence could make this a pass-heavy game for the Texans offense, which could give us a nice Tank Dell game.
Yeah, I like that. And yeah, like you said, we're not going terribly deep now, but we are targeting guys that are on your bench and you're a little wishy-washy about playing or not. Do I play him? Do I not? So we're kind of getting ahead of some starts and sits with some of this, and Tank Dell's a great example of that. And considering this is probably going to be an aerial game, or at least, and I'm even mean from the backfields, I expect Mixon and ETN both to catch a lot of balls. I think, but yeah, Dell and Collins. I think Collins is going to blow up this week, frankly. And all he has to do is blow up once or twice, and that's going to free up Dell big time.
He's been this close the first 2 games he's been back.
Yeah.
He's had big plays called back from penalty.
Yep.
It's going to happen. Who you got?
Okay. Well, I'm going to beat you to the punch a little bit because I know who your last guy is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to say any wide receiver not named Adam Thielen on the Carolina Panthers.
All right.
The only reason I say Leggett is he's at 27% rostered. I mean, he is heavily involved. I wish he could catch the balls that hit him in the hands. But he has a problem with that. However, Leggett, I think, feels a little bit of the effects of Thielen coming back, because even though Leggett lines up on the outside, he runs a lot of crossing patterns. And that's what Thielen does, but Thielen does them from the slot, so he's closer to the line of scrimmage. So when you're looking down the field, the first person you see is Thielen, but you'd have to look past him to see a jet back there. But who I'm most interested in is David Moore. I think he's 4% rostered in leagues. I think a lot of people saw a great game last week, figured it was a one-hit wonder. They were like, where did this dude come from? Is this just a flash in the pan? David Moore is 29 years old. He's played on 7 different teams, or at least been on their practice squads. 7 different teams, including Carolina. This is his second time with Carolina. The thing is, to this point, he hasn't lined up enough to make an impact in the league. And we saw what happened last week. He played all but 4 snaps on offense. And then what do you know? I mean, he turns around and goes 6 for 81, has a touchdown. And it looks like Coker is out again, which means Moore lines up in that spot almost exclusively over anybody else for that game. So I like Moore this week, probably better than some people that are on a few benches.
Yeah, and the Buccaneers are a good matchup. And
it's great. It's a great matchup for wide receivers for sure.
And Bryce Young's playing better.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard your little dig there at Adam Thielen.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm going to tell the people you can play Adam Thielen because That's Thielen, right. He's rostered in 30% of leagues. He's still widely available. He returned from his hamstring injury last week. He was limited with just 61% of the routes. 61% of the snaps, 67.5% route participation, just 11% target share. He turned that into 3 catches, 4 targets, 57 yards against a tough Chiefs defense. And we saw the Bryce Young, Adam Thielen connection last year. He was a top 35 wide receiver 10 times. He scored as the wide receiver 25 in fantasy points per game. That was with a bad Bryce Young. Now we've got a lukewarm Bryce Young. And
again, like that was I made the note about the Chiefs too, when everybody was like, well, I don't know about David Moore. I'm like, well, this was against the Chiefs. And
right.
It was Bryce Young,
Yes.
The first thing I said to somebody I was talking to earlier, they were telling me who was available on their waivers. And I said, are there any Panthers? Because I kind of like all of them. The only problem is you can't tell which one's going to do great and which one's not. And it's doubtful that all 3 of them are going to blow up. But yeah, you like that Thielen thing? That's the give and take, man. I set it up there so you could spike it down.
Yeah, that's right. And Thielen, I'm only expecting his role to grow from here, especially with Jatavian Sanders out this week with that neck injury.
Yep.
We talked about the Buccaneers matchup. They've allowed the 7th most fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position. They play in a ton of shootouts because they have a good offense and a bad secondary. So wheels up for all of your Panthers wide receivers. Now, with Bryce Young at quarterback, they can't all get there, but take your pick. Whether it's David Moore, whether it's Xavier Leggett, or whether it's my guy, Adam Thielen, start your Panthers. I never thought I'd say that. Start your Panthers.
I know. There's a first time for everything,
It is. All right. So before we get to our bold predictions, we usually like to hit at least a few of the questions in the chat, and the chat's pretty active tonight. So why don't we scroll up, grab a few questions, and then we'll give you a chance to think of your bold prediction because I know you forgot to think of one. And
I always forget to think of one, but I always come up with a winner.
That's right. Always makes the show a little bit more dramatic. All right. So should we start Travis Etienne or Nick Chubb, full PPR?
Full PPR. I'm going to go Etienne this week.
Oh, yeah.
I hate the guy. I don't like him. I don't roster him. I trade him away as fast as I can. But I like the catches out of the backfield. And I'm still not buying Chubb even after last week. He's not that efficient.
No.
It's going to take him 40 carries to really, really hit a home run.
He looks exactly how we expected he was going to look coming off that knee injury.
Some of us, yeah.
How about would you play Jeremy McNichols over Javonte Williams?
No. Javonte has a tough matchup, which brings them a little bit closer, but I still have them about 10 spots apart on my running back rankings. I think I have them at like 35 and 47. So, no.
How about Darnell Mooney or Ramondre Stevenson? Ramondre got outplayed and outsnapped last week by Antonio Gibson.
That's a good one. I can tell you that in my home league, I am not starting Ramondre this week, but I have better options. I like Mooney this week a lot. But I also know in the past when Ramondre has a bad game, they go right back to him the following week, and then he has a big game. So in this matchup, I'll opt for the running back.
How about should we drop in a PPR league? Should we drop Kareem Hunt for Tank Bigsby? Who's the better handcuff stash at this point? Is basically what the question is.
Well, how many carries did Pacheco get the other day?
I know he had 44 yards. There's like 7 for 44, I believe. He's going to get ramped up from there. But we got to think of the contingency value here. Is if something happens to Isaiah Pacheco, do we like Kareem Hunt better than we would Tank Bigsby if something happens to Travis Etienne? For me, that's a yes. I'd rather have Kareem Hunt in a good quality offense. We've already seen he's averaged about 15 fantasy points per game during the time that he was filling in for Isaiah Pacheco. A lot of that came on touchdowns. He wasn't very efficient, but he's in the Chiefs offense. They fed him. It's late season. It's December, January football. They're going to lean on the run game. I'd rather stash Kareem Hunt. I don't think either one of these guys are really going to give you much standalone value, but
yeah, I don't think so either. But I'm sorry, upper left, to make this even harder than it should be, but I'm going to go the opposite direction. I have more trust in Pacheco not re-injuring himself, because he wouldn't have come back if he wasn't ready, than I do in Etienne. Etienne just looks like he's still banged up, even though they say he's fully healthy and he's back, and he's so slight, So I would rather have Bigsby, because with Etienne out of that offense, it's all Bigsby, and we saw what he can do when he's getting the rock by himself. The only problem is your seeding catches.
Let's grab a couple more. How about this one from John? We need to start for this week. Should we drop Devon Vele to pick up Xavier Legette, or should we keep Devon Vele and start him?
Vele.
Okay. I would probably say the same, unless you want to shoot for upside. Upside is Legette. He's the guy who could give you 100 yards and a touchdown. Vele is probably capped at 5 for 50. MVS or Adam Thielen rest of the season?
Adam Thielen.
Okay. I'm going to go. Yeah, I think you're right. If you want the boom bust guys, MVS, but we saw what Adam Thielen did last year with Bryce Young. I would probably trust him a little bit more.
I mean, he's going to get at least twice the targets every single game that MVS is going to get. The question is just whether MVS catches one of them for a touchdown.
Would you start Marvin Harrison Jr., Ladd McConkey, or Jackson Smith and Jigba?
I have the first two in my home league, and I'm starting Ladd. However, in these three, I don't see how you can bench JSM with the way he's been playing.
I agree. I'm going to go Jackson Smith and Jigba there. All right. Did you think of a bold prediction?
Yes, sure did.
All right. What do you got?
I'm going to go. I never, ever pick my team for anything. Do we have any big? How big were the running back performances this week? Nobody pulled a Saquon Barkley, right?
I think our best running back was Rico Dowdle.
Okay. This week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Chase Brown is going to be the RB1.
Ooh, I like it. You know, he's had 100% of the backfield touches in every single game since Zach Moss went out.
Yes.
Yes. So I like that. I like that call a lot. All right.
And everybody's going to be saying league winner all week. And then next week, he's going to have 8 rushes for 10 yards against Dallas.
Oh, no.
Because that's the life of a Cincinnati fan.
That might be the boldest part of the bold prediction.
Right. There you go.
All right. My bold prediction for week 13 is actually kind of a rest of the season one. We haven't done a rest of the season one in a while. So the Jets. The Jets are about as disastrous of an organization as it gets. Aaron Rodgers has been awful. The coaches have been fired. The owner sucks. They fired the GM who was on an expiring contract. It was like a mercy fire or something. I don't know. It's not going well. Things are not going well. Nobody likes Aaron Rodgers. He sucks at this point. He's not the same old Aaron Rodgers. And the personality is starting to overshadow the performance on the field. So my prediction is that this week, week 13 against the Seahawks, will be the last time that we see Aaron Rodgers start a game in the NFL.